Imagine you could step inside the minds of Canada's healthcare leaders, glimpse their greatest fears, strongest drivers, and what makes them tick. Welcome to Healthcare Changemakers, a podcast where we talk to leaders about the joys and challenges of driving change and working with partners to create the safest healthcare system.
Hey listeners, it's Philip here from Hurock. Thank you for tuning in to Healthcare Changemakers. Your engagement with our show is just amazing. Thank you for letting us in your day. We know how valuable your time really is. So, on today's show, we're delighted to be sitting down with Karen Oldfield from Nova Scotia Health. I was fortunate to connect with Karen a number of times over the last year, and in each instance, there was this unique positive energy emanating from Karen. And I wondered, where does she get this energy from, and how can I get some? So, we brought her on the show, and we talk about all things leadership, innovation, positive partnerships, and generally about all the amazingness happening in Nova Scotia right now. And I even got in a question asking Karen to tell me how her family would describe her in one word. It gave me a good chuckle. Okay, let's get to it. Welcome, Karen, to the show. How are you today?
Excellent. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. For those of you who don't know, I had the pleasure of meeting Karen a couple times this year, but one of the times I really valued was at her place, at her office, at the Innovation Hub downtown Halifax, and it was just great. It was a great space, and funny enough, we happened to bump into another Hurock subscriber from our friends from Health Pro were there too, doing some work with your team, and that was just it just felt like an awesome energy.
There is a lot of energy in the hub, Nova Scotia Health Innovation Hub. Some of it is just because of its location, in downtown Halifax, but mostly because of the view, which is, we're fortunate to be able to look at Halifax Harbor, and the space is kind of cool. So people like it. It's creative, always gives off good vibes, good energy. So people do like to work there, even though the parking can be tricky and a little bit expensive. So they still like to be there, and it's usually quite busy every day.
No, I had a great time. I loved it, and your team is amazing. So let's get right into it, Karen. So we know many of our listeners across Canada are familiar with Nova Scotia Health, but let's pretend they're not. What's your elevator pitch for talking about your organization?
Well, Nova Scotia Health is the biggest employer in Nova Scotia.
Wow.
And we have 40,000 people between our staff, physicians, volunteers, researchers, patient advocates. And so as the biggest employer of Nova Scotia, it also has a very large scope. So it's not just healthcare. It can be IT, it can be building, it can be industrial engineering, it can be food services, environmental services, sustainability, anything that you can think of that happens in a city actually happens at Nova Scotia Health. It's kind of like a small city or a city unto itself.
Wow.
So I really like that because it means for people who choose to join the organization, there's a lot of different ways that you can work. And what you start with may not be what you finish with. And so I like organizations that thrive and develop, that are committed to lifelong learning, that are committed to, personal and professional development. So you get all that, plus you can help 1 million Nova Scotians with their health and wellness. So that's a little snapshot into Nova Scotia Health, and I'm pretty passionate about the work and also our people.
No, I can definitely tell. And your elevator pitch definitely is going to entice some people to go look at the careers page.
There is no question. And on that note, we have a fantastic page. It's won awards, actually, international awards. Yeah,
Wow.
It's called More Than Medicine. And the more is because it's more than medicine.
Yeah.
And it's got some great pictures. Every single job we have at Nova Scotia Health is noted there, as well as where in the province it could be, as well as little snapshot about the community where the job might be. So let's just say you're somebody who wants to live very close to a beach or the ocean, or you want to be in a city, or you want to be in a thriving arts district, whichever. It's all there. And as I say, we've won awards with it, so we're pretty proud of it. It's a nice little website, More Than Medicine.
Perfect. Well, I'll definitely put that in the comments and when we share the pod. And I love the fact that you talked about the flexibility and adaptability and lifelong learning. Those are things that mean a lot to everyone's been on this show and everyone, basically anyone in healthcare, I have to say.
Yeah, exactly.
So you spent many years before this role leading the Halifax Port Authority. What's one lesson you took from your leadership time there that you've taken into your role today?
I think the biggest lesson, and you always learn, no matter which role you take on, you always learn something. And when I reflect back on my time at the Port Authority, one thing I did there, and which I brought forward into the Nova Scotia Health Authority, is the idea of a fresh page. So what I mean by that is sometimes when you're the newbie, i.e. the new CEO or the new VP or the new charge nurse or the new, whatever, you're coming into a team that's been in place for a while. And whenever I've done that, I like to sit down with the members of the team and basically say, look, I don't care. That was then, this is now.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, your history, it's kind of irrelevant. I'm turning a page. You write your book for me.
Yeah.
You write your history for me. You write your fresh story for me. And so I really like to give people a fresh start with a new leader. And it's something that's worked really, really well for me. And even in this current role, I can think of a number of people who, with a fresh start, they just blossomed.
Mm-hmm.
And, folks, other colleagues may have said, oh, that person's really going to need a lot of work. That person's going to need a lot of mentoring or whatever. And yes, perhaps with a little bit of mentoring, it's amazing what people can do.
Absolutely.
And so this is something I've used. It's a technique that I really like. I love to give people a fresh start, and they can write their history for me. We'll write it together.
Yeah, I love that, writing history together. It's such a good way. It's a positive way of communicating too.
Not going in their file
That's
and
right.
looking at every little thing that ever happened over 20 years or 5 years or 6 months. I don't care.
Yeah.
You write your ticket with me.
Yeah, I love that. And it tells it you're listening as well. You want to hear from that person how they want to own their.
How do they want to show up?
That's
exactly.
Right. Yeah, I love that.
Exactly.
And why was stepping into this role with Nova Scotia Health so intriguing to you, Karen?
Well, there was no challenge I did not like, that's for sure. By profession, I'm a lawyer, so lawyers tend to be troubleshooters by nature. It's kind of the job. But I do like challenges, and I love helping the underdog, and I love even being the underdog. So when we think about healthcare, when I thought about healthcare, I'm like, oh my God, this is massive. Mm-hmm. It's the biggest, it's the challenge of our time, not just provincially, but nationally, even globally. And I said, okay, I'll bring my skills and my experience to Nova Scotia Health for a period of time because the challenge is so big. Mm-hmm. I might be able to, move the needle a little bit. Maybe I can do my share. And because I did not grow up in healthcare and did not have a healthcare background, perhaps the skills I have and the experiences I've had might actually shed a new light on some of the challenges. So that's kind of how I thought about it when I came to it and when I was making my decision. Because when I was first asked, I just said, are you crazy? Absolutely not. I just never saw myself doing something like this. But then the more I thought about it, the more irresistible it became. And then I said, yes, I do want to serve my province in this role for, a period of time that I hope I can make a difference.
It's fantastic. And you're making an impact because I was recently at a conference, Children's Healthcare Canada conference in St. John's, and Jane Philpott brought up your province and said there's great things. Her exact quote was, there's great things happening in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, no, it's true. And she's been here a couple of times. She's spoken at the Kinley Lectures at Dalhousie University on her health homes, and as well as to our senior leadership team. when she was here in the summer addressing the Canadian Federation of the First Ministers. So all the premiers, she addressed them as well on the nature of health homes and health neighborhoods. And we've kind of taken a page out of that book because that's the road that we are going down.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But I mean, we've done a gazillion things in 3.5 years, actually 3 years and 3 months, September, October, November, 3 years, 3 months and a half. And now we have recently just, the government was reelected and they have a, significant majority. So what I think will happen is, as the premier, actually, I went to the swearing in yesterday and I heard the premier's remarks, and he was funny because he has an expression which is, more, faster. And he said, well, a second mandate, he said, I guess I should say more, faster-er. So it was kind of funny. So I guess that's what we'll be doing, more, faster-er. Yeah, we're on quite a pace, quite a tear, and there's going to be no rest, that's for sure.
Well, speaking of that, what's something then that you and your team are working on currently that you're particularly proud of? I'm sure there's lots, but is there one that pops to mind?
Yeah, I'm going to share two.
Okay.
One was this week. We saw on Monday, we had a media tour and first patients on Tuesday of a place we call West Bedford Transitional Care Facility. And what it is a purpose-built, standalone facility that will take patients out of the acute care hospital to West Bedford to recuperate for up to 14 days. And these would be individuals that need a little bit more physio, a little more occupational therapy. They may need to relearn something. Any item that we can help them with to ensure that they will go back home. So these are patients that, if they stay in an acute care hospital, every day they stay there, it lessens the chance that they're going to go home successfully.
Yeah.
Whereas if they have the right care and the right attention and the right opportunity to recuperate in their private room with their own washroom and beautiful surroundings and great meals, then the chances of them going home, which is where everybody really wants to be, the chances are greatly enhanced. And so we opened that this week, and we're really proud of that.
Yeah, congrats.
It's kind of big. It's big in Nova Scotia for sure. So that's one. Second one, I've been proud since the day we rolled it out, which was in October of 23. So like roughly 15 months. And that's our Your Health NS app. And I just looked at the numbers the other day. We have 1 million people in Nova Scotia, just over 1 million people, our population, and there has been 527,000 downloads of the app. So we're over half the population.
That's amazing.
And through that app, they're able to book blood work. They're able to get the results of the blood work. They're able to, book the things that not everything, but many of the things that they need. They're able to access virtual care through the app. If you have a family doctor, you have 2 free virtual care visits through the app every year. If you don't have a family doctor, then you have unlimited access to virtual care through that app. So it's a one-stop shop. It's got fantastic navigation, and we will be releasing the next version very shortly that has all of your scheduling will be available through the app. So for example, any appointments you have either with your physician or your nurse practitioner or your pharmacy, or the acute care system. So you're going to an eye clinic, or you're going to get blood work, whatever the appointments are, will all show in the app. And with the press of a button, you can put them into your daily calendar, whether that's Outlook or Google or whatever it is. So it's big.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's very exciting.
And to have half the province already on board, like I'm a communicator, so I know how hard it is to get people to do something. So
well, what I like about that, to be honest, is, once, like, that's a huge number of people, massive. So then you have so much opportunity to reach out and to communicate and make sure people know and understand. And it's a two-way street, of course, because there's opportunity for feedback and evaluation and all that good stuff too. So it's big for us, and we're very excited about it.
Oh, well, the two examples you gave, I don't know how you can top that. Those are really good.
Just watch me.
It's
Not
fantastic.
me, but us.
Your team are awesome. And you've also recently entered a collaboration with Life Sciences Nova Scotia. Can you tell our listeners more
Yeah.
about this particular collaboration and why your organizations are hoping to achieve through this?
Yeah. So I mentioned, actually, you started off by talking about the Health Innovation Hub.
Hmm.
And at that hub, we have a managing director, and the managing director is Doris Grant. And Doris, she was in the life sciences sector stateside for a while. She came home. She worked at Dalhousie for a little while. She came to Nova Scotia Health. She worked with us. And then she left to become the CEO of Life Sciences Nova Scotia. But, it's not good to have too many organizations in the same space without being able to work together super
Hmm.
well. So what we thought might be a good idea was for Doris to double hat for
Hmm.
a year. So continue on as the president of Life Sciences, but also to be the managing director of the Innovation Hub.
Ah,
Because a lot of her companies in life sciences are also working in our hub to promote either, their research or their potential service or their potential technology. And many of our researchers and entrepreneurs that work with us in the health system actually, work with the life sciences companies.
yeah,
So there's kind of a natural bridge. So we just put them together to make it easier,
of
to be
course.
honest, to just make it easier. Now, if they don't work together, that's fine too. But we'll give them the opportunity to collaborate. And, some of these collisions that we can enable in creative space, good things happen.
Oh,
And
one hundred percent.
that's really all that we're trying to do. So I think it's networking in part, it's learning in part, it's causing the good collisions to happen, the partnerships, and really that's what we're hoping to achieve by it. So, and on the other hand, it also helps life sciences because we're sharing some of the financial burden, some
Mm,
with us, some with them. So instead of having two fighting for maybe the same dollars. This way we
yeah.
band together and we have a bigger impact.
So much innovation. And I love that it's like sounds like it's like a seamless strategy as well, an
Correct.
experience for
Yep.
partners.
We'll make it simple. Why do we need
Yes.
to layer everything and so much red tape? Like business people, entrepreneurs, researchers, learners, people just want it to be simple. So
Yeah.
that way they can focus on what it is that they're trying to create.
Yeah. Oh, and I love the fact that you talked about these positive collisions. We implemented these things just for our staff. We call them collision chats, where
Right.
different people from different departments get together and they
Right.
get to learn about what they're doing and how they can help each other. And it's been a huge success. So I'm great to hear how you and I love that you use that
Yep,
word.
that's exactly what we try to do too. And, so far it's been extremely successful.
Oh, it's fantastic. And Karen, you also have a podcast called Chats on Change through
Mhm.
Nova Scotia Health, where you speak to health leaders in the province and sure elsewhere. And so, what's the biggest thing you've learned through doing the podcast and connecting with like-minded professionals? And what would you say is the key to sparking these meaningful conversations?
It's a good question. Well, first of all, for me personally, I love having an opportunity to showcase the innovation and the intellectual prowess of some of our professionals. And they could be this could come from any part of our system.
Yeah,
These are people who are want to make change, positive change, for the better. It could be process, it could be tech, it could be any number of things. So usually I get ideas. People send me, you should talk to this person, you should talk to this person. Or I might be walking in one of our facilities and see somebody that's doing something really cool. So, just make a little note.
yeah,
I've committed coming into 2025 to actually up the ante. I need to do more because there's just so much going on. And the more I do, the more people listen and as well send notes saying, well, you should talk to this person, Karen. You got to talk to this person. So I love hearing the stories. Every person that comes on has a great story. I mean, really,
Mhm.
truly, you know, they all have a personal story, of course. Why did they get into healthcare? Why did they get into the particular area that they're working in? And also, they love talking about, the innovation that they're creating. And I like to, as I say, I really want to showcase
Yeah.
the smarts of our people and what, they care. They're loyal, they're committed, they care. Healthcare workers can go anywhere these days, as you know. It could be
Hmm.
another province, it could be another country. And so I love being able to put the gold star on people and let them shine.
I love it. I love how you said you're committed to doing more. I feel like you've done, I feel this hearing you just today. You do so much. I'm like, how much more are you gonna do?
Well, success breeds success, I guess,
True,
is the
true.
best. It energizes you, and
Yeah, and you thrive on action. I can tell.
you need the energy to get through the bad,
Yeah,
right? Because the bad can be really bad.
yeah.
It can be a lot of red tape. It could be rooted in bureaucracy over many years. So untangling it and putting in place a new, better way can sometimes be really tough sledding. So I like the highs, and they get me through the lows.
No, speaking of those highs, I'm sure you've mentioned that you have a supportive family that allows you to get to go and get, like I said, like we've been talking about, get things done.
Yeah.
So what does that support look like to
Oh my
you? And
God.
and what advice would you give to other leaders on being supportive so their loved ones, for
Mhm.
their loved ones and colleagues?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just paint a picture for you. So I have a cottage. It's close to my home. It's like 35 minutes from
Oh,
home, door to door, literally, on a lake. And it's almost like a little compound. My parents who live in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, the cottage is on the eastern shore. So in a place called Chesapeake.
yeah.
So it's near Porter's Lake for those who look on a map. So my folks come down on the weekends,
Oh,
and the
that's nice.
next cottage to my folks is my sister and her husband, and then myself and my daughter are at our cottage. So we have three in a row, and I spend a lot of time with that particular sister. I
Yeah.
have another one in Toronto. I have two brothers here, and this is a family, five children, and not a week goes by that we are not in contact with
Aw.
everybody. And the kids, there's only, 7 years from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So we're quite close. And, we trust each other's judgment. So very good sounding boards. And that's really, really helpful. I have
Yeah.
a lot of family members through them who are in the healthcare professions one way or another. And so inevitably, I hear it from the field too,
Yeah.
which, I just throw that right back to them. I said, okay, you're telling me your problem. What's your solution?
Yeah.
So it's a very open family. So people tell it like it is. And they get, you got to be able to give and take, give and take, give and take.
Yeah.
So to me, that's support. And I can have a very bad day and they will be there 100%. And of course my own daughter Laura, she's 29, she'll be 30 at Christmas, is
Oh.
that kid looks after her mother. I guarantee you that. She looks after her mother, and she's a great support to me, so I'm
Oh.
extremely lucky. Now, in terms of, not everybody has that kind of a
Yeah.
family dynamic or that kind of closeness in their family. But I tell leaders, if that exists for you, great. But if it doesn't, you have to have, I mean, I've always called it like a little kitchen cabinet, but you
Yes.
need to have those people around you who care about you, not about your job,
Yeah.
about you, and can help separate the important from the urgent. We all get, stressed out over the urgent, where it's the important things that you have
Hmm.
to stay focused on, not the issue du jour. And so, I think the kitchen cabinet can help you with that. The kitchen cabinet can also get you up when you're down.
Yes.
And, when you're really down, you have to have a person that you can call that's, going to get you back up out of the doldrums.
Hmm.
So, in my case, that comes a lot from my family, but I also have three or four people that I golf with on a regular basis who are very close friends and have been for a long time. And, you can't, that's worth its weight in gold. You have to have it as a leader because, as the saying goes, it's lonely at the top. Well, it is lonely at the top.
Yeah.
It is lonely at the top. So you got to have it.
Oh, that's some great advice. And if I were to call your daughter right now, when I asked her to give me one word to describe you, what word would she say?
Crazy.
Stop. You're
She
too
probably would.
funny.
No, she'd say, she might say that. She might say that. My mom, she might say, my mom, well, she's, yeah, she'd say crazy. She'd say, my mom, she's awesome.
Yeah.
My mom, she works really hard. My mom, I love her.
Yeah.
She could go any of those directions, but
Aw.
she would laugh. The first thing she'd do is laugh. She would laugh because she wouldn't have, she goes, well, she would say, where do I start for
Oh,
crying
yeah.
out loud? Where would we even start? She's a one of a kind. My mom is one of a kind.
Oh, that's funny. Karen, as a former president of the Canadian chapter of the International Women's Forum, we know you're passionate about women being represented in leadership and board positions. So, why do you think leaders should pay attention to women?
Wow. Let me count the ways. So healthcare, I mean, number one, what, 50%, over 50% of the workforce is female. And, these are individuals who have childcare responsibilities. Well,
Yeah,
if they're the sandwich generation, may need to care for parents
of
or
course. Yeah.
other family members or children. And not in all cases, but certainly the research would show that to be in a disproportionate percentage. So, one of the things I hear a lot is maybe we need a daycare in the hospital. And some people have tried that, and we have tried that in a small way. But that's not just for the female workforce, that would be for, males and
Yeah.
all people, really. So I think for women, for me anyway, coming from a business background, it's women have needed a bit more mentoring, a bit more nurturing and caring to find their own voice and to find their own way in what historically has been a man's world. And really, the healthcare system is different, but in some ways, but not, because there's a real hierarchy. Not in all places.
Yeah.
I don't want to generalize, but there has been a bit of a hierarchy depending on what role you have in the hospital setting or in the healthcare system, and not everybody is equal. So I think for the leader, it's important to find the ways to raise people, to develop people, so that they
Mhm.
can give voice to what it is that they care about and they're passionate about. So I just do different things. Like I always have two or three mentees on the go. They
Mhm.
could be male or female, but
Yeah.
historically I have mentored more females. What I like to try to do is I always work on public speaking, because I think it's so important to be able to give a good, solid presentation and to stand up and speak with confidence.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of little things that women can use some extra mentoring.
Mhm.
So I'll just give you an example. This doesn't necessarily apply to healthcare, but it certainly applied to me. And I guess in my own career, like this is, I don't know, my fourth job or my fifth job, but I practice law in a very male dominant firm, large firm.
Mhm.
I was in a political role way back in the 1990s, which politics and the legislature at that time was also quite dominated by men. I
Mhm.
was the chief of staff actually to
Wow.
Premier John Hamm, like at 1998, 1999
Yeah.
time frame. So plus I was young, pretty young. So those two, and then going to the Port Authority, I also, a very male dominated sector.
Mhm.
So I try always to do things to others that I would have liked to have had along the way.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of how I look at it.
when you started your career, like you are very confident, and
Yeah.
I can just tell. I mean, the passion you have for something, for healthcare, or obviously when you were at the legislature, I can tell each position. I can just tell. Obviously I've only met you a few times, but I can tell each position you've had, you have a great foundation of who you are,
Yeah.
and where you come from, and what you will and will not tolerate. So where did you learn that from? Like, was it a parent, a friend? I don't know. Who was it?
I've been asked that question before. And of course, I've been extremely fortunate because, as I mentioned, I come from a really close family. And, we're almost cookie cutters of each other. The 5 kids are almost cookie cutters, not quite. But, it's the values, right? The values
Mhm.
is the foundation. So that's parents. And again, I've been like my parents, they will turn 85 this year. They've been
Oh,
married for, 63 years, 64
wow.
years, and their parents were around through our lives for a long time too. Like, so there's been a lot of stable relationships on the
Hmm.
family side of the house that not everybody has.
Yeah.
And it took me a really long time to realize, like, I thought that was normal. It's
Yeah.
not.
No.
So that was one thing. I always had wonderful teachers who really helped me and took an interest, like grade 2 up to and including university. And then when I started to work, this was before mentorship was even a thing. But you gravitate to people who can help you, and people did help me, and they still help me. I still have people that I would go to
Yeah.
for advice and for mentorship. But the more you get, the more you have to give,
Yes.
right? The more you get, the more you have to give.
I like that.
Yeah, it's the fact of it. And, I will never, ever, ever, ever scrimp on giving people around me a little, like a leg up or an advantage when it comes to like their own personal or professional development.
Maybe you have already, but have you? You should write a book.
Oh my God. I've started 3 times. I have a ghostwriter
Oh yeah.
that we're trying to get some of this stuff out. I'm just trying to figure out, what would people read?
Well,
Like what would they be? What would people actually be interested in? I don't know. Like I could just talk, kind of like Chelsea Handler, and be sort of funny about it because there's been a lot of funny things that have
yeah.
happened along the
Yeah.
way. But I could also go down the leadership road. I could
Yeah.
go down like just funny stories that have happened. Teach the lesson through the story, I
That's
guess.
what
So
you
I
should
don't
do.
know.
That's the book. Teach the
Maybe,
story. Yeah, I'm telling
maybe,
you, I would buy it.
maybe. But it's funny. Like I even have a working title, which is I had an idea. Dot dot dot.
Uh,
Because I've had so many ideas that have actually come to fruition that it's really amazing when I look around. I don't mean business ideas for
yeah.
myself personally. I just mean ideas for community, for society, in my different
Yeah.
jobs. I'm an idea person, and try to come up with the idea for good, and then you make it happen.
That's a great way to head into our lightning round. Idea for good, and I love that you mentioned the values that helped, that are definitely rooted in your in how you've been raised. I love that. So now to the lightning round questions. And you mentioned the golf, and I remember there was a question here. I'm trying to think of what I was going to ask you
What are
about.
your favorite
Yeah,
courses?
we know you're a big golfer. So what are your favorite
Yeah.
courses?
Of course, in Nova Scotia, we have some amazing courses at in Cape Breton in particular. So
Ah,
we have Cabot Links and Cabot Cliffs, which have become favorites. They're hard, but the scenery is unbelievable, as well as Highland Links in Cape Breton. So I mean, there's some really nice courses there. So it's a drive; takes like 5 hours to get down there. So
yeah,
it's a weekend for sure.
yeah,
But I've been lucky. I've played lots in over the United States and lots across Canada. I really like courses that have scenery, whether it's
mm,
on the ocean or whether it's on on lakes or in the
yeah.
mountains, like in Canmore. I walked Pebble Beach. I did
Wow.
not play Pebble Beach. Actually, when I walked it, I'll just maybe finish the answer with this
Yeah.
one. My husband wanted, like, one of his bucket list items was to go to this car show that they have once a year. And the conclusion of the car show on the Sunday is they have these beautiful old cars on the 18th hole at
Yeah.
Pebble Beach. So we did go one year to that, and yeah, it was really fun. We loved it, loved the cars. It was a really, really great experience, and a beautiful, beautiful golf course. But no, we did not play it.
Still cool nonetheless.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And what was your first job ever? Your first job ever?
The first job I ever had, I was 16 years old. And close to my home, there was a mall called Woodlawn Mall, and they had a consumers distributing.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
remember that store? So basically, so mail order catalog
Yeah.
store. So like so far from an Amazon, like you can't even remember. Anyway, you'd go in the store, you'd look in the catalog. I guess it's kind of like Lee Valley.
Yeah.
So you go in, you look in the catalog, you write the number down of the item you want, and then the person, me, would go in the back and pick the thing and bring it out and give it to you, and then that was it.
On
Yeah,
your way.
that was my first job.
If you could have lunch with any living leader, and so it could be in business and health and government, society, like pop culture, whatever, the sky's the limit, who would you want to sit down with and why?
I'm going to give you two. I
Okay,
have
yeah,
two,
give me
one
two.
male, one female. And, there may be, I wouldn't say two sides of a coin, but different lives, that's for sure. On the female side, I'd love to sit down with Dr. Angela Merkel.
Ah,
Now, as the former Chancellor of Germany, like she was raised and grew up in like Eastern Berlin on the other side of the wall, so to speak. And then, of course, after the unification of the city, she became the Chancellor of Germany. So I'd love to understand like what that meant to her growing up and how it formed her thinking and her leadership. And of course, she's a scientist and just really, really, really well read. And I don't know, I just really admire her.
yeah.
I think she had a vision and she went for it.
Yes.
So I like that. I have met her.
Oh.
I have met her. Yes, I have met her.
Wow.
But I have not sat down and
Sat
had
down
lunch
with her. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So I don't, I can't pretend to know her. But at the same time I met her, I also on that trade mission was then Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And so I got to see them kind of in motion together.
Yeah.
And so I've met him, but I have never sat down with him. And these days, of course, he's doing, some different things and still has so much. He has views of the world that I would really like to understand.
Yeah.
And, he has history and he has experience and he has still so much foresight, and he's on some very interesting boards too that I think must give him great insight. So
Definitely.
These are two people I'd just like to understand, what they learned, what they saw, what they think will happen.
I'm curious now, because you mentioned it. Who's the non-living person?
Oh, well, that would be like I'm a huge Margaret Thatcher fan.
Ah, okay.
I really, the Iron Lady, I was young. Like I was young as in university when Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister of Britain. And of course, she would have been a heroine only because there were very few female leaders.
That's right.
Very few female people who were in public policy. So I studied political science and history. So she would be a person I'd be reading about in the newspapers and just following. And I always would have loved to have sat down with her. 100%.
And my last question for you is, what is the best piece of advice you received from a mentor, or I guess anyone really?
A very good piece of advice for a very passionate person like myself, loyal, committed, passionate person. Sometimes it's hard to ask for help, and sometimes it's hard to accept help.
Yeah.
And, my mom is very, very good around that for me. And, my mom says, listen, Karen, whatever you do, be gracious.
That's nice advice.
Yeah. And that advice is, it's important. And the older I get, the more important I realize that it is, right?
Yeah.
Be gracious. So I try. I'm not always successful, and she'd be the first person to say that too.
Of course. That's good. Well, Karen, I had a fantastic time chatting with you. I got some good laughs in. I took a lot of notes. I loved hearing about, who you look to because, as someone who's also like you, like a learner, I like to hear how other leaders, like who they learn from and who they look to. And, and it also then kind of indicates, maybe where your mind is going and, how you want to keep making that impact and change in Nova Scotia. And so we look to you, when Catherine and I met with you, we look to you as an awesome leader who's, like we said, making big impact, big change, and making things happen. And that's why we wanted you to have you on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I think, we are making things happen here. We're very committed, and we've been extremely fortunate to be able to have the support of a great minister, and also the government generally. They're on a mission to fix healthcare, so we're just trying to do that as fast as we can.
Definitely. And our eyes will definitely be on you and your team and seeing all the other things that we can and then share with others across the country. And hopefully they can scale your innovations across the country. So we'll be looking at you and your team in 2025 for sure.
Thank you for listening. You can hear more episodes of Healthcare Changemakers on our website, heroc.com, and on your favorite podcasting apps. If you like what you hear, please rate us or post a review. Healthcare Changemakers is recorded by Heroc's communications and marketing team and produced by Podfly Productions. Follow us on Twitter at Heroc Group or email us at communications@heroc.com. We'd love to hear from you. Glimpse their greatest